Okay, welcome folks. Once again, it's Gary Ryan here with you from Organisations That Matter on behalf of Monsu Caulfield. Tonight we've got session number 4 in the 8-part series, developing high quality conversation skills and how to use them for the benefit of your club. It's part of the Club Committee Professional Development Program facilitated by myself. I'm looking forward to this session to give you some skills that are going to really make a big difference to your club and its activities, and in fact, the whole of your life. So we're going to explain the quality conversations model. We're going to help you to be aware of how that model can be used in every conversation for your club. I mean, every single conversation, and how the quality of your conversations has a direct impact on everything you do, not just within your club, but it's going to make a difference academically. It's going to make a difference personally. It's going to help you to leverage this skill for your personal and professional success, and we'll briefly advertise the next session in the series. So, water is to fish as conversation is to human beings. Water is to fish as conversation is to human beings. What on earth does that mean? If you think of a fish and it's swimming along and you're fishing. So have you ever been fishing before? Okay. So whether you're on a boat, you're on a beach, you're on a pier, you're next to a riverbank, if that fish comes along and takes the bait and you reel it in, and you assume that the fish is still alive when you reel it in, show me with your hand, what does the fish do as soon as you take it off the hook and put it down on the ground or in a bucket? What does the fish do automatically after it's been caught? Goes like this, doesn't it? Now, what happens is the fish has no idea it's in water. It has no understanding of the concept of water until it's no longer in water. And then every part of the fish's being says, get me back to where that stuff was, right? A fish wouldn't even have a name for it, of course, because they don't think like that. Because every single human being can speak conversationally, or the vast majority of us can, we equally have very little understanding of just how impactful it is on our lives. And we literally go from one conversation to the next, irrespective of the language that we're speaking. We go from one conversation to the next conversation, fundamentally unaware of just how important the quality of the conversations are. And because we're unaware of it, we're not actually getting the most benefit from it, because most of us think that we are very good at conversation. And we think we're very good at it because we've been doing it since we started to speak. Okay? So we're very unconscious of the importance of the quality of the conversations in which we are involved. And it's the one aspect of being human that really separates us from every other creature. Other creatures can communicate, yes, even a single-celled amoeba can communicate with its environment through an exchange of chemicals. So it can communicate, but none of them can speak like we can. Probably the closest there is dolphins and whales that use a form of sonar to communicate with each other like a language. That said, and while we still are studying it, it doesn't seem to be as broad as the language function for human beings. And for many of you, you're multilingual. So you even got multiple languages you can draw upon. So these principles apply no matter what language you speak, okay? So the quality of the conversations we have impacts the decisions that we make. Are you comfortable with that connection? The quality of the conversations has an impact on the quality of the decisions. Then the decisions we take directly influence the actions that we take. So we go from the conversation quality to the quality of decisions to the quality of actions. Then over time, there's the impact of the cumulative effect of those actions on performance. Now, notice at the moment, I've just been saying the quality of the conversation. I've not been saying if it's good or bad. Let's assume the quality of our conversation isn't as good as it could be. Let's say it's poor. What's the impact on decisions, on the actions we take, and then over time on performance? And yet, because we're not aware of this importance of the quality of the conversations, we may not be aware that the decisions we're making are poorer than they should be. We're unaware that the actions we're taking may often be the wrong actions. And of course, we just get frustrated when we don't get the level of performance we say that we want. And of course, normally we would blame everybody else rather than ourselves, okay? So the intent here is let's consciously raise the quality of the conversations in our club committees. Imagine at our committee meetings, imagine in our project team meetings, we're having higher quality conversations. We'll have better decisions. The actions we then decide to take will be better, and will more likely achieve the level of performance we're striving to achieve. And again, this doesn't just apply to your club. This applies to every aspect of your life. You think of an important relationship that you have with someone that might not be going very well. I can promise you, if you improve the quality of the conversations that you have with that person, the relationship will improve for sure. Something else I'm going to teach you tonight is that there are 5 characteristics to improve the quality of your conversations. If you work on these 5 characteristics in your clubs and in the whole of the rest of your life, you will, even as just a single person, you can influence the quality of a conversation. Even if you're one amongst 10 or even more, just one of you can influence the quality of the conversation. Now, it's not going to be as great as it could be if everyone understood these principles, but it will still be better than it would otherwise be if you weren't participating in the conversation. That's the influence this can have. Now, if you think more broadly to your career, this skill set is vital for career success, and also equally vital for career progression. And the speed of career progression is linked to these skills, okay? So the first one is listening for understanding. That's your first skill. So your first goal is to understand what is being said. Now, this is critical. It is to understand what is being said. It is not to agree with what has been said. That is not the goal. So it is possible to understand what someone has said and actually disagree with them. That's okay. But your first task is to make sure you actually understand, not just think you understand. You must actually understand. And the person that judges that you understand is, in fact, the other person or people in the conversation. They are the judges of whether you have understood or not yourself. So you do not have to agree. Excuse me. The tactic to help you to listen for understanding is to listen for the nouns, verbs, and action phrases that are being said. So listen for the nouns, verbs, and action phrases that are actually being said. They are the key focus for you when you are working on listening for understanding, okay? This is essential that you're focusing on the nouns, verbs, and action phrases that are actually being said to help you to do this skill, okay? So nouns are naming words. Verbs are action words or doing words. And action phrases is when people mix some nouns and verbs together sometimes, but it talks about them actually doing something, some form of action, okay? Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of them when people speak. They will actually use a lot of nouns, verbs, and action phrases in their statements, okay? Your job's just to try to notice the key ones. So some people say to me things like, I'm really terrible at understanding people's names. Now, remember the self-talk session? That's just self-talk that you'll prove to yourself to be true. A name is a noun. Okay, that's all it is. It's just a noun. So it requires some effort to do this. All right, so notice the key ones. Now, in the conversation that follows, to demonstrate your understanding, the tactic is to feed the key nouns, verbs, and action phrases into the conversation. Now, if you can, take notes. One of the beauties of this current time when we're sitting on computers and doing everything remotely is it's a lot easier to actually take notes than potentially if you were live. Now, I encourage people to listen and take notes. Like literally the words you might write down are just the key nouns, the key verbs, or the key action phrases. If you just note those things down, note nothing else down, you will find it will help you follow the conversation and also demonstrate that you've understood what they've said. When you work these words into the conversation, folks, what happens is the other person subconsciously gets the message that you listened. Even if you actually turn out to disagree, the fact that they believe you listened, just show me with your hand, do you think that's going to increase the relationship or decrease the relationship? Which one do you think's most likely? That if someone believes you listen to them, are they going to increase or decrease? Yeah, it's natural, okay? It's very natural. The reaction is, it's going to increase the relationship. Now, when our relationship is increased, even just in the moment, even just in this single conversation, people are more likely to be more open to talking about a range of possibilities about how much you agree with each other. And they'll be less upset that you disagree and more open to discussing possibilities. That's why this is really key. There is one exception to parroting. Now, parroting is when you say back to someone exactly the sentences they said, every single word. That's called parroting. The only time parroting is considered okay is that if the person is speaking in another language and it's clear that their vocabulary in that other language is quite small. If you parrot to them, you may be in fact demonstrating that you really did listen, and by using the exact words that they said to you demonstrates that fact, and the fact that you're saying the words they used, which matches their vocabulary, helps them believe, yes, you actually did listen to me. That's about the only time parroting is actually okay. Most other times it will be considered disrespectful. Okay, so just take a moment, Sadman, to think about something that you're very passionate about. Now, I know in our pre-session chat, you mentioned cricket, so I'm not sure, maybe cricket's an example, all right? Or something that you're knowledgeable about. So you might not be passionate about a topic that you're knowledgeable about, but you might know quite a bit about it nonetheless. So I'll just get you to write down a couple of dot points about a topic for which you are passionate and knowledgeable, or you could be both passionate and knowledgeable. I'll give you a moment to do that. And then, folks, Sadman has volunteered to work with me on this. Sadman, we're going to have a quick conversation, and you're going to just share with me your topic and some information about your topic for which you're passionate and or knowledgeable. So yes, you've unmuted yourself. Could you tell me about your topic, please?
So I think the topic is international relationship usually. So it itself is like a major, people actually study that intensively, but it's more like a hobby for me. And like, I really love to learn about that more and more. For instance, I always try to follow up with global and world news, like it includes international politics, what's happening all around the world, and etc. and etc. And I think I'm not quite like, I try to be knowledgeable about this topic because I did some model events before, and because I was passionate about it, so I tried to do some activities on that as well, and I think I gained some knowledge from there. So I think yeah, I think that should be it from my side.
Okay, Sadman, thank you very much. Now, just listening for the nouns, verbs, and action phrases, this is what I heard. I heard you mention international relationships, okay, as the topic. I heard you say it's a hobby for me. That's an action phrase. It's a hobby for me. I heard you say that you love to learn about this topic, and it's like a passion. I heard you say that you follow up through using Google and other methods to learn about this particular topic. It's been that you try to do some activities to develop your understanding in it. Now, is that somewhat accurate for you? Okay, so folks, that's a demonstration of just listening, taking down some notes, just purely in relation to the key nouns, verbs, and action phrases. I had no idea what Sadman was going to talk about. Did I? I didn't know, did I? You hadn't told me previously. So I was just purely listening, okay? Now, if that conversation was progressing, I would be working in those mental notes and or physical notes that I've taken. Now, given this is a task that we learn, have a look at this. Anything that we're learning as an adult, if you imagine over here, we've got the performance in the task. So this is the performance in listening for understanding. And down here we have time. And I call this the pushing through the learning curve. Now, the challenge that we have is over here. We're not starting at a skill level that's very high. Realistically, we're starting at a skill level that's quite low. It might be 2 or 3 out of 10. This is a challenge for adults. The challenge for adults is that because we are adults, we expect for new things. We're actually very competent at the start. We expect the start line to be much higher. But that's not realistic, and it's not how we really learn. Equally, do you notice with this exponential curve, we have a flat part, which means time is ticking, but what's happening to our performance? Yeah, it's not improving, see, it's flat. Performance isn't improving. Now that creates a level of frustration. And what we tend to do is we go, oh, that doesn't work. Instead of pushing through the learning curve, we say, oh, that doesn't work, and we stop it because it feels uncomfortable. We don't like being a 2 or 3 or 4 out of 10. You know, we like being up here. And particularly when folk are at university, we've done very well usually throughout our academic careers. We're used to be good at things, right? Especially things that we get to do in the real world. Now, if any of you are mathematicians, you'll understand this. This is fascinating. The issue here is we don't know how long this flat part of the curve will be. We don't know. If you are learning something that is a technique that matters, remember that, a technique that matters. If you're learning something that's a technique that matters, the smart hard work is to, in fact, keep pushing through time and push through the learning curve, because the reality with an exponential curve is you never get to the curve without going through the flat bit first. The issue is you just don't know how long that's going to take. So deliberate practice. And what I would encourage you is, while yes, we are focused on listening for understanding for your club and committee, practice this at home. Practice this in every conversation. If you try this in every conversation you have, you will find very, very quickly that the quality of your listening will significantly improve. This is a really essential thing to consider, folks, okay? It will definitely have a really big impact. And thank you, Sadman, for your help there. So, as your passion for a topic or your emotional level gets higher, what do you think happens to your listening? Again, show of hands. Up for your listening goes up. Just go level for it's the same, or down. What do you think? As you get more emotional, does your listening go up, stay the same, or go down? Yeah, correct. That's it, folks. It goes down. This is really important, okay? So you might be in a committee meeting and someone does express something that is an opposite view to you, and that upsets you. You cannot stop yourself from getting upset without a lot of practice, right? It's just going to happen. the thing is, you'll notice the physical reaction in your body. That's where we notice. We get some chemicals, cortisol and adrenaline, that float around, increase our heart rate. Our mouth can get a bit drier. We might even find our leg starts to move. These are physical reactions that are triggered when we get emotional. Notice when that happens to you. If you notice when that happens to you, you can then do something about it, because the high probability is that while you're being emotionally hijacked, because that's sort of what's happening, there's a part of your brain called the amygdala that sets off all these chemicals. Your ears go straight to your amygdala. So the rest of your brain hasn't had a chance yet to catch up about what's going on. Your amygdala reacts before your human's part of your brain, your neocortex, has even worked out what it heard. And you've got these chemicals in your body causing this reaction, but that causes you to stop listening. Okay. So the thing to do is to notice when this happens. And of course, in clubs, we should have quality conversations where there is passion and emotion present. So I want to be clear. I am absolutely not saying that for high quality conversations, you should be emotionless. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when the emotions kick in, we need to catch ourselves through a couple of techniques I'm about to teach you, so that we can calm ourselves down and get ourselves back up to listening at the level we need to listen. Okay. We want passion and emotion present, okay, in high quality conversation. So what we won't need to do is that you need to notice the changes of your body and use the sensation in your body effectively as a trigger through a couple of these techniques, right? And we want to use some mindfulness techniques, such as even right now in this session, or if you're watching the video, notice your feet touching the ground. Just bring your attention to it. If you're sitting down, you can do this with your feet. You can also, or instead, notice your bottom and lower back touching the chair, the seat that you're sitting in. What we know is, folks, in just 30 seconds of in the background, noticing your bottom touching your seat or your feet on the ground, you will trigger what's known as your parasympathetic nervous system. And that triggers chemicals to calm you down. And by calming you down, you can increase your listening. You're listening for understanding. All right. So as you master these techniques, you can come into meetings, etc., and you can get yourself ready. Right at the start, you can calm yourself using these simple techniques. Sit properly in your seat. Notice your bottom touching the seat. Get your feet flat on the floor. Notice that. If your leg's doing this, hands up if that's you, that you're in a conversation and your leg's going. If you think about it, when your leg's doing that, especially in a live person-to-person conversation, that's telling the other person to hurry up. When you're doing that, if you're sitting there jigging away, it's telling the other person through your body language, you better hurry up because I've got some really important stuff to tell you. And when I've got stuff to tell you, I'm probably not listening to you. Okay. And the other person is getting that message, whether you like it or not. So the more calm we can appear and the more calming we can do for ourselves, the more likely we are to actually listen. So remember the key here, folks, is we want passion. We want emotion. But we've got to understand when they're both present, they tend to decrease our listening. So we have to use these techniques to calm ourselves so we can improve our listening and get that high quality conversation continuing. The second key element is to ask high quality questions. So what's a high quality question? Well, it's a question that's deliberately focused on progressing the conversation you're in at the moment. Now, that question might be a question around your understanding. So you might have noticed that I said to Sadman in that demonstration before, is that somewhat accurate? Now, that was a closed question. Now, sometimes closed questions get a bad name. Closed questions are absolutely fine. So a closed question is a yes, no answer. They're absolutely fine when you're checking that you've understood. If Sudman had have said, no, Gary, that's not quite right, I would have said something like, please tell me more. And he would have told me more, and I would have continued to work hard to understanding, and I would have then checked again. Okay. Now, this might seem slow. And some people say, oh, this is fine, Gary, but it makes the conversation slow. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. But if it means you end up with a higher quality conversation, and if that means you end up with better decisions, and if that means you end up with better actions, and if that means you end up getting better performance, maybe slower is faster. Okay, maybe slower is faster. So what's the most powerful question I can ask to progress this conversation? So imagine that's your focus. Now, I would argue that because you've been at school, primary school, secondary school, then university for so long, my best guess is you are fabulous answerers of questions. You have learned since you were about 5 years of age and started school how to answer questions. Prior to going to school, however, you probably asked more questions than you answered. And a lot of those questions would have been starting with why. Why is the sky blue? Why are the grass green? All of those why questions that little children ask. Now, what we know is that children up until about the age of 5, assuming that they can speak, will ask in terms of non-Google type questions. So we're not asking Siri or Google or any of those devices, just human to human questions, 128 questions per day. When we get to 17 and older, again, non-Google, non-Siri type questions, human to human questions, 5 per day. Now you think, why does it go down? Well, it goes down because if you're in a classroom of 30 children asking on average 126 questions per day, and most of them are at school and there's only one teacher, the teacher can't handle that many questions. So they teach you to stop asking questions. So school teaches you don't ask questions. So as a result, we get to be adults like we are now, and we're really good at answering questions, and we've sort of lost the skill, if you like, of asking questions. The good news is, however, I believe that natural child still lives in every single one of us and can be reborn quite quickly with some focus and effort. And one of those focuses is, instead of waiting for the other person just to stop speaking so you can say what you're always going to say, if your focus in is, what's the question this conversation needs to progress it? So your question must be genuine. It must be genuine, meaning you actually don't know the answer, and that's why you're asking the question. It's not a question that's a leading question deliberately to set someone else up. That's not the sort of question that contributes to a high quality conversation. It is genuine and you do not know the answer to the question. That's why you're asking. The question is focused on the topic or the agenda. It's not a random question that's got nothing to do with what this topic and agenda is. It is focused, okay? So that's a rule for a high quality question. The intent of the question is to build shared understanding. Remember with the session that we did around mental models, okay, which is part of the self-talk session, we want to build a shared understanding. So our questions are about having a conversation that are going to raise our understanding of what's going on and what we're trying to achieve. So it could be a question around getting more clear about what the success in an event is going to look like. And people might say, oh, we have 50 people there. Okay. So what will those 50 people be saying? Remember that conversation from the creative tension session, right? So these are some skills that we can use. So 2 tools to help you with your questions are, in fact, creative tension is one of them. So in creative tension that we learned in the last session is that there are 3 fundamental questions that come with it. So we've got, what does success look like? We've got, what's our current situation? And then we've got all of those questions around what we need to do. So you might be listening in a conversation, and because you're listening for understanding and with the nouns, the verbs, and the action phrases that you've noticed, it actually becomes clear that there isn't agreement on what success is, or we really haven't gone far enough yet. All we've talked about are the 50 people we want to turn up. We haven't got some clarity around about what their experience is going to be like if it was successful. So it might be something like, I've heard, everyone's talked about that around 50, a minimum 50 for this online event's really what we're aiming for here. But what's their experience going to be like? What would be some things they might be saying during the event or after the event about what it was like to participate? Now, that's a question to progress that specific focused conversation that at the moment you might have some thoughts, but you want some collective answers around it, okay? Or your question might be that often people will say things like, oh, everything's really terrible. We can't do it. Everything's bad. And that's a current reality statement. Now, a week before, maybe something good happened in the club. And you might say something like, well, Gary, I understand what you're saying. I understand the things that you said were bad, or you might name the things that they said. He said, do you recall that situation last week with, and you would name them, and they might go, yes. And you go, so remember how this and this and this that was good came out of that? Do you recall that? And they might go, oh, yeah, I do. Now, by having that conversation, you're helping in the current reality part get more clarity that, you know what, things may be bad, but they're not as bad as it sounds. There actually is some good things. So a focus for the current reality is what's the good, the bad, and the ugly. They're three questions to consider to get some balance in that current reality. And then, of course, maybe there's some questions around what we're going to do and getting clarity around who's doing what, for example. And it amazes me how often in teams, we actually don't get to the point of clarifying exactly who's going to do what. So you might be sitting there going, okay, folks, it sounds like we've got everything planned. We know what we need to do. Would it be okay to spend some time clarifying who's going to do what? Or you might just might say, so that's a closed question. Or you might just say, hey, I'm not sure who's going to do this task, as a more open question. Or could we spend time allocating tasks to people? Or as we discussed last time too, maybe we could talk about, are there some developmental opportunities for some of the members of the committee who might not normally do this task, but want to do this task to develop their skills? Is there, asking questions like that in the group. So we can use creative tension, can be a tool you can have sitting beside you in a conversation to help you understand what the possible questions are that you might ask. Secondly is the ladder of inference. Now, in the Miro board that I'm going to give you access to in a moment, you can download the digital version of my first book, What Really Matters for Young Professionals. I'm currently just not too far off finishing the manuscript for my second book, Disruption Leadership Matters. But my first book, I'm going to give you the link to that. And it's chapter 10, which is practice number 10, Learn how to slow yourself down from jumping to conclusions, is the section I'd encourage you to read that's going to help with this. So you need to learn to slow down from jumping to conclusions. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in a second. So this is a tool called the ladder of inference. And I'm going to use a bit of a funny story, which was true, to help you understand how this works. So in any situation, there's these 7 rungs on a ladder that we go up. And at the top of the ladder on rung 7 is when we've taken action based on jumping to some form of a conclusion that we made at rung 5. So quite a few years ago, I had some friends, a couple, and they had both of their mobile bills for the same company on the same bill. So when the account came, they had both their numbers listed and all the activity for their numbers. One of the partners was home before the other one from work and got the mail. Opened it up, and this partner very quickly looked at the bill. So all of the information, every bit of information on that bill represents rung number 1. Very, very quickly, they noticed their best friend's number appearing a lot on their partner's record. That is rung 2. They knew their best friend's number. They quickly noticed it on the bill and then quickly noticed it was there 43 times between phone calls and messages. Okay, so of all the information on the bill, which is rung number 1, they selected the data that stood out to them. Now, we as human beings can't help but do this. There is, in fact, too much data available for us to process. Our brains have evolved that we select a limited amount of data very, very quickly. We also, once we select that data, add meaning to it also very quickly. In fact, rungs 1 to 4 take place subconsciously. It's not till you get to rung 4 that you realize that you've actually selected this data. And I'll explain what we do in a sec. So in this instance, they added meaning to they observed. My partner has my best friend's number on there 43 times in the last month, because that's what the bill was. That means my best friend and my partner are seeing each other behind my back. At that stage, right? So that's what it means. You then become an assumption. This is when we can now become conscious of it. The assumption is my partner and my best friend are having what's happening, folks? An affair, right? My partner and my best friend are having an affair. Now, that's where we become aware this is an assumption. Based on what's happened, I'm assuming this is what's happened. The dangerous part is we go from assumption to conclusion, because now it's no longer an assumption, it's now a fact. My partner and my best friend are having an affair. That's a big difference between an assumption and a fact. If you have already beliefs about the world that lots of people have affairs and lots of people do it behind people's backs, and maybe recently in this particular couple's situation that had happened in their friendship group, you could become subconsciously noticing data that might match that possible belief, or as we've called it in the self-talk session, a mental model. And because with our mental models, we use our mental models to select data that matches our theories already, this can become quite a quick, vicious loop. So that's on rung 6. When this person's partner came home and the bill was there, what do you think happened? And of course, what happened was a brief accusation with the bill of an affair. Now, actually, folks, you may have already guessed, and Sadman will give you an opportunity here. What do you think was actually happening? What was really going on? Yes, it's true. 43 times, that was real. That wasn't made up. That actually was on the bill. What do you think was actually happening? Why were they in contact? You got any guesses? No idea? What was happening was the partner was organizing with the best friend a surprise birthday party. There was good reason why they were in contact with each other. And the partner had just not even thought that this information would pop on the bill, hadn't even thought that that would actually cause a problem. And of course, the partner explained, oh, look, I'm organizing a surprise party for you. That's why we're in contact. And of course, that's where the person calmed down. So the issue with the ladder of inference in jumping to conclusions is once we get to rung number 4, that's when we become, I'm about to jump to a conclusion here. I have an assumption. So I assume this is what's happening. What we want to do is go back down the ladder and use questions of ourselves, or you'll notice other people do it. Other people, oh, Gary's not at the meeting tonight because he doesn't care. So as soon as someone says something like that, okay, when you say Gary doesn't care, I'm not so sure about that. What about when Gary did this, this, and this? That's a question that you might ask the program. And what are some other possibilities that's happened to Gary? Has Gary been late before? No, he hasn't, but he doesn't care. That's why he's not here tonight. Let's go down the ladder and think of what are some other possibilities. Gosh, what if Gary was in hospital and that's why he's not here? We'd feel a hell of a lot different, wouldn't we, if we were accusing him of not caring and then we found out he was actually ill in hospital. We've got to sometimes go down the ladder and actually admit and be okay with the fact maybe we don't know what's going on or why someone's doing what they're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't take action sometimes based on assumptions. We still live in the world of action. The difference is, okay, we've got this assumption. We've tried to work out what might otherwise be going on, but we haven't been able to work it out. We still need to take action. So based on this assumption, we're still going to take this action. Now, when you do that, you're open to the possibility that your assumption could have been wrong and therefore your action might be wrong. And if you discover that later, you just fix it. Okay? So we still need to take action, but there's a big difference between going again from an assumption to a conclusion, because that's when we take it from, it's a possibility I've got this wrong to, I haven't got it wrong. This is 100% what's happening. Now, of course, when there are times when we do have accuracy with our assumptions, that reinforces to us that we're pretty good at knowing when something's going on and my assumptions are accurate. So that becomes a reinforcing cycle of a mental model that my assumptions are always accurate. Folks, I can promise you, there is so much data in the world that is just not possible to know. So even this afternoon, I had an online coaching session where at 3 minutes past the hour, the client hadn't come into the Zoom call yet. Now, that's not very long. And I have trained myself that I needed to check the invitation at whether it had been accepted or not. And when I checked the invitation, at first I didn't notice, and then I realized, oh gosh, this hasn't been accepted, and it hasn't been accepted because the actual person hadn't been invited to that meeting. While there'd been another email trail saying that we were going to have this meeting at this time, the actual invitation, which was my fault, hadn't been sent. So I quickly sent them a message with the invitation on it, just saying, hey, hi, how you going? I'm not sure if you've got this in this calendar, but I just realized I had made an error and hadn't sent you this invitation. If you can't make it, that's fine. Otherwise, I can wait a little longer. Now, if I hadn't have checked the possibilities, I might have just been sitting there going, oh, they've stood me up, right? Now, as it turned out, we were able to have that meeting. We just started 10 minutes later in the end, and we got it done, okay? Number 3 is you got to let people finish speaking. So notice how often in meetings, and this will happen in your clubs a lot, a possible benefit of the online world is actually makes it a little bit more obvious when people are talking over the top of each other, especially if they're unmuted and their little screen gets that little yellow box around it, okay? So just notice that. Now, some people deliberately do it to bully other people or that sort of behavior. Now, clearly, if that's going on, this isn't a high quality conversation, right? If we've got people trying to dominate deliberately other people, it's not likely to be a high quality conversation. And sometimes when you see interviewers on TV shows with politicians and they talk over each other, you're just sitting there, feeling, oh, this isn't very good. It's not great, is it? And because neither of them is listening to the other, right? They've just got their 8-second grab they're trying to get for some news item, and it's not intended from either of them to actually be a high quality conversation, which is rather disappointing, to be honest. So this is a sign that you're not listening when you talk over the top of people. As much as possible, let other people finish speaking. Give them the time and space, especially quiet people. Let them have some time to speak. There is one caveat with this, however. If someone is talking about a topic that isn't related to what we're talking about right now and is off tangent and is rambling on about something that's not at all useful for you, there are times when you need to gently show the hand and say, please, Gary, I need you to stop. At the moment you're talking about, and show that you listened. So you talk about the nouns, the verbs and action phrases, but that's actually for another time. That's not for now. Right now, and you would remind them we're talking about this topic. If you've got something extra on this topic to talk about, please continue. Otherwise, can we hear from another team member potentially? So that's a way to manage that. So we don't just sit there and go, oh, I don't want to talk over the top of someone if they're completely off tangent, right? There are times when we respectfully need to stop them and interrupt, but that should be much less rather than more. Share the flaw. Over the course of the committee's journey, the contribution to the conversations ought to be relatively even. This is based on some very significant research through Carnegie Mellon University and Google teams, where 180 teams were studied over a 2-year period. And this research was released in 2016. Okay. Now, notice this doesn't mean a single meeting. We're not saying in a single meeting, everyone should speak equally. What we're talking about is the journey of, say, a year between the committee meetings, the one-on-one meetings, all the different conversations that go on. We should have somewhat equal contribution from all the team members. What we've found through this research is that if there's a person that dominates the conversations over time, or you've got someone in your team you never hear from, you rarely hear their voice, at best, the team will be a good team, at best. High-performing teams have this characteristic of somewhat even contribution to the conversations. And it's because it indicates that there is enough psychological safety for everyone on the team to feel comfortable to speak. And it is through hearing the different voices, through the diversity that gets onto the table, that real innovation has an opportunity to come to life. And we need that, importantly, that at least that incremental innovation and possibly that disruptive innovation that we spoke about in the first session. We need to give them the opportunity to come to life for the organization, the club in this instance, to be the best that it can be. Now, if you can learn these skills and practice these skills deliberately in your club, the impact on the rest of your life and career will be extraordinary, I can promise you, because most people are not good at contributing to high quality conversations. You've got to be focused. I really encourage you to push through the learning curve on these skills. Now, the fifth key characteristic of a high quality conversation is that new possibilities are in fact possible. That's how you know. Now, if a new possibility is possible, does that necessarily mean you would do it? What do you think? If a new possibility is possible, would you necessarily do it? Or sometimes you might go, no, exactly, Salman. You would go, you know what? We've had a good conversation, but we've come to the conclusion, we've got a shared understanding that's not going to work for us. That doesn't mean you had a low quality conversation. There are times when that's just the reality. But we need to have them for the times that we all are on board about something that is amazing, that if we weren't having a high quality conversation, never would have got suggested, because people would have been too scared. They would have been sitting there self-censoring, saying, I better not ask this question because people might think it's a dumb question. How often that happens in your team where someone's genuinely got a question, but they don't want to look stupid, so they don't ask the question. You know, it's sad because we don't hear that voice. And maybe that question could take us in a direction that would really help us to be able to create the success that we want over time. So your 5 characteristics of high quality conversations are listening for understanding, asking high quality questions, letting people finish speaking, we share the flaw, and new possibilities are possible. So folks, in the next session, which is on Monday, the 6th of September, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, it's going to focus on how being a committee member enhances your career prospects. So really going to focus in that session about the 5 sessions that we'll have done, or the 4 sessions we've done to this point in the journey, and how they are going to intertwine and be interdependent in really enhancing your career prospects. So we're really going to delve a bit further with that storytelling element that we did in the first session, leveraging some of the content that we've done in these other sessions at the moment. Okay, so we really want to help you to do that. So once again, folks, there's my contact details. I'd like to thank you for coming along and or watching it on the video, and I look forward to working with you next time.